here's this week's project. I got this bench either for free or I paid $5 for it from a person that I buy furniture from out here, and I used it for a long time to throw my tools on. And recently I've been, cleaning up my barn and trying to put things away and make it neat. And actually, I'm using this for my tools right now. It's just a bag, but I have it on a roller. And so I'm going to refinish this. And if my oldest son, likes it, I'm going to give it to him. If not, I'll put it for sale. A sort of farmhouse. It looks like, actually, at first I thought it was pine. I think the bottom is pine. The top, I'm not really sure. I'm going to wash it down. I'm going to give it a good cleaning. I'm going to try scraping it and then sanding it and putting a nice finish on it. I'll fix up some of the scratches and I'll show you some details on that. So you can see that it's very stained. Scratches. I don't know how deep those are. You never know. It might not be too bad. Yeah, and I have to turn it upside down and see what's going on underneath. All in all, it looks pretty terrible this way, but it's actually not in bad condition at all. I'm going to clean this up off camera. People sometimes ask me how I got into woodworking and painting. The first wood that I ever refinished was a simple ash bow that my brother gave me when I was about 11. I sanded and sanded it until it was butter soft. I fell in love with what I could do with a piece of wood. Later on, I guess I was maybe 12 or 13, I saw an old side table in my mom's basement. It was one of those mid-century modern tables with a short top shelf and a longer lower shelf with a drawer. I asked my mom if I could have it, and she said yes. I diligently removed all the old stain by hand and sanded until it was butter soft. Then I stained it with a brown stain instead of the original blonde red color. When my mom saw it, she said, "Is that my table?" I said, "No, you gave it to me." I was so selfish, I wasn't going to give it back to her at that point. I always loved fixing things. I would take a princess phone that was broken and fix it. I took apart anything that wasn't nailed down or screwed in. I just liked seeing how things worked. I'm still like that, I guess. In my world, back then, my older brother had it best. He had all the cool toys, like erector sets and Lincoln Logs. He even had a chemistry set. Sometimes he would put some goop or bug bit on a slide and let me look at it. Fun fact, later on, I would minor in chemistry. The first furniture I ever painted was a set of twin beds for my little ones. The boys were about 4 and 5 years old when they were graduating to real beds. I saw a set of wood-framed beds at a yard sale. They were beautiful, actually, very old even at that time. The head and footboards were squared off but arched, and the slats were squared off as well. They were high off the floor once you got a box spring and mattress on them. They looked kind of dark and high and scary. To make them more friendly for the boys, I told them I would paint each one according to their directions and design. I didn't use the word design, but that's what it was. Tommy wanted his bed frame painted blue, with each slat a different pastel color. We had green, yellow, blue, pink, green, yellow, blue, pink, alternating rows. Colin wanted his bed frame painted yellow and white, with yellow facing front and white on the insides, like a white shadow. I'm telling you, those beds were so pretty. I was amazed that they could think of such detail. And they weren't afraid to sleep in them after that. Truth be told, though, Colin fell out one night. I was horrified. He didn't even cry. He just climbed back up and went off to sleep. I did put a bunch of pillows on the sides in case that happened again. I'm using oxalic acid mixed with water to bleach the wood as much as possible. It still had some of the old stain deep into that grain, and a few stains on it. Looked like a couple of burns. I wanted to see if I could get that out. It definitely looks better. I'm going to rinse it off and do one more treatment and see if I can get it just a little bit better. Now here I'm going crossways on the green, on the wood fibers that have risen because of all the water and the oxalic acid. So I just want to make sure that all those little fibers are cut off, and then I'll smooth it out a little bit more with 120 right here. I'm sealing in the wood with some shellac, and I will let that dry and give it a light sand. And you can see how pale this wood stays. It's just a very pale yellow wood, which isn't really going to be that attractive. So I'm going to have to do a color wash over it to get some depth into it. So that color doesn't change much with a coat of shellac, and you can see that it's not really a discoloration. It's just the pattern and the angle that they've cut the wood that shows this grain. Kind of interesting looking. So this is basically the color, and I want it darker. I was planning on putting So my plan was to get a water-based stain in walnut, and when I went down to buy it, it was just the untinted base substrate, and it was like $19. And I thought, well, I can tint my own substrate, and I'll just use my liquid shellac and put a little bit of water-based paint, one of my chalk paints, as the tint in it. And then when I came back, I realized I don't have a can of shellac for some reason. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a paint wash on, just a water paint wash, and see what I get. And if I have to, I can use some of my wood toners and see how good I can get that color. So let's try it. After a nice wipe down, I'm starting with a nice fresh cloth, and I'll use that to wipe off my color wash. So this is the underside of the bench top. I'm going to try the paint wash on the underside and see how it looks. Now this is the top side of the bench. I'm going over the shellac finish with a 320 sandpaper, sanding sponge, and I am going to do the paint wash on this side. So it seems very repetitive, but I just wanted to make sure that the underside took this water wash, color wash, the way I was expecting it to before I did the top. So here I am doing the same thing on the top, and you're going to see that there is a lot of sanding that has to happen because of all this water. So even though that stain may look really dark on the camera, by the time it's done, it's not really that dark because of all the sanding that you have to do. And it doesn't come out bad. I like it, but to me it looks just a little too plain. So I want to richen that color a little bit. Now normally I would use a toner, but I don't have enough toner left to do the entire bench, and I don't want to run out halfway through. So I think what I'm going to try is I'm going to warm up this coffee bean with a little bit of a warm color and see how my second coat will be. I think that will be just the thing that it needs, so I'll try it. Now I have another paint. It doesn't seem that much different, but it's called Truffle, and it definitely has a bit more warmth to it, quite a bit actually. So I'm going to mix that in with my coffee bean and water. So I tried out that new color on the back of the bench and, on some of the separate parts, and I do like it. It just gives a little bit more richness to the color. And so I'm going to keep sanding and flip it over and do the top side. Thank you for watching this week's video. You watched me transform this kind of boring bench into something a little bit more modern and updated. I used a color wash with Dixie Belle's paint, coffee bean, and then in the end I added a folk art color. I think it's called Truffle. I added those two together, about a 50-50 mix of water. And yep, it took a few coats. I used a lot of shellac. I did a lot of sanding. And then I used my General Finishes flat out flat because I just like that finish. Yeah, so you can still, I'll give you some close-up pictures. You can still see the grain in it. And it's nice. I straightened out the slat in the middle, the stretcher. And so that's nice and tight. It's all nice and solid. I mean, I would sit on it, but I don't want to scratch it because it's still a new finish. Yeah, so we'll take some pictures, and I hope that you're subscribed if you like it, and I hope you have a good rest of your weekend. And thank you again. And wishing you all good and beautiful things.